They say when you're in a coma, you're in a deep sleep. They're wrong. I was awake. I couldn't move, I couldn't scream, but I could hear every word my husband and his mother whispered in my hospital room. I heard them discussing the market value of my dead parents' estate. I heard my mother-in-law, Diane, laugh as she tried on my wedding ring, calling it wasted on a vegetable. They thought I was a ghost, but 2 weeks ago I opened my eyes in a secret facility. I didn't call them, I didn't cry. I started planning. If they wanted my life so badly, I was going to make sure they paid for every single square inch of it. Let's get into it. My life was perfect until the rainy Tuesday when a truck ran a red light. I woke up, mentally at least, to the sound of beeping machines and the cold voice of Diane. She wasn't praying, she was on the phone with a realtor. "The girl is brain dead, Marcus," she told my husband. "It's a mercy to sell the house now. Why let a $3 million property sit empty when we could be living in a penthouse?" For 3 months, I was a prisoner in my own body. I heard my husband, Marcus, the man I'd shared 5 years with, agree to forge my signature on the deed. I heard them talk about moving me to the cheapest state ward available to save on medical costs. Every day, they'd come in, play the part of the grieving family for the nurses, and then whisper about their new luxury lifestyle once the nurses left. They sold my childhood home, the house my father built with his own hands, to a developer who planned to tear it down. They moved into a $5 million condo in the city, bought entirely with my inheritance. The curiosity in my mind wasn't about why they did it. I knew they were greedy. It was about how far they would go. I started focusing every ounce of my will on my right index finger. I needed to move. I needed to wake up. Not for my life, but for my revenge. When I finally twitched, a nurse saw it. I whispered one word to her: "Help." I didn't ask for my husband. I asked for a lawyer. I was officially back from the dead, but to Marcus and Diane, I was still a silent paycheck. If you think a husband who sells his wife's childhood home deserves to lose everything, hit that like button and subscribe right now. You won't believe the trap I set for them next. I spent the next month in a private rehab center funded by a secret account my father had set up for me years ago, one Marcus didn't know about. I was walking again, but I stayed in the shadows. With the help of a private investigator, I hacked into the smart home system of their new penthouse. Diane had decorated it with my parents' antique furniture, acting like the queen of a castle she didn't earn. I started small. I wanted them to feel the fear I felt when I was trapped in my body. At 3 a.m., I would remotely turn on the smart speakers in their bedroom and play the sound of a flatlining heart monitor. Diane would scream, waking Marcus up, but by the time he checked his phone, the music was gone. I turned the thermostat down to 50 degrees in the middle of the night, then up to 90 by dawn. I watched through their security cameras as Marcus started drinking heavily. He was seeing ghosts in the hallway, which was actually just me, dressed in my old hospital gown, standing in the frame for a split second before disappearing. They were living in luxury, but they were terrified. Diane started calling psychics, convinced that my spirit was angry. Little did she know the spirit was very much alive and sitting in a van parked across the street, watching her every move on a tablet. I wanted them to be at their breaking point before I delivered the final blow. They were losing their minds, thinking the house was haunted, but the real nightmare was just beginning. Subscribe now to see the moment I walked through the front door. The shock on their faces is something you have to hear to believe. The day of the final shock was Diane's 60th birthday. She had invited 50 of the city's elite to the penthouse to show off her new life. She was wearing my mother's pearl necklace. I waited until Marcus stood up to give a toast to his brave late wife. I cut the power. The room went pitch black. Then the giant 85-inch TV in the living room flickered to life. It wasn't a birthday video. It was a compilation of the recordings I'd made from my hospital bed using a hidden device the nurse had helped me plant. The entire room heard Diane say, "I hope she dies soon so we can buy the beach house." They heard Marcus laugh about forging my signature. The elite guests gasped, moving away from them like they were infected. Then the lights came on. I walked through the front door wearing the same dress I had on the day of my accident. The silence was deafening. Diane dropped her champagne glass, the shards cutting her expensive rug. Marcus looked like he'd seen a demon. "Elena?" he gasped. "I'm not a ghost, Marcus," I said, throwing a pile of legal documents on the table. "But your bank accounts are." I had already worked with the DA. Because the sale was sold via forgery, the sale was voided. The bank had already frozen the penthouse funds. My lawyer was standing at the door with 2 police officers. "You have 10 minutes to take what you brought into this marriage and leave," which, if I remember correctly, Marcus, was a suitcase of dirty laundry and a mountain of debt. They were dragged out in front of everyone they tried to impress. Diane was screaming, her fake pearls breaking and scattering across the floor. I didn't feel sad. I felt clean. I sold the penthouse the next day and bought back my childhood home from the developer. Some things are worth more than money, and watching your enemies fall is one of them. Greed destroyed my family, but it couldn't destroy me. If you enjoyed this high-stakes revenge, comment "Justice" below. Make sure to like and subscribe for more stories where the truth finally comes to light. Thanks for watching.